What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Panthers advice. Let's straighten this thing up real quick. So obviously tough game against the Niners. Couple things to point out before we even jump into it. No Cade Mays. All right, if I remember, we're seeing the injury report before the game, and no Trevin Wallace and no Roseboom. So does that matter? To me, it does a little bit. You saw the Niners pretty much drive out will in that first half, running the ball right. I think the first drive they took 10 minutes, 15 plays or something. Absolutely crazy. And part of that's because the Panthers don't have Trevin Wallace. They don't have Roseboom. And I talked about this on the video I posted, 5 hours ago, where the Panthers don't have depth at linebacker, right? You've got Claude, you've got Martin Scott, you've got Incoom, if I'm not mistaken. Just not a lot of depth and stability right there, especially when it comes to stopping the run. And then zone coverage has always been a weakness since week one. All right, and that just might be a Vero scheme in general, but zone coverage across the middle, tight ends, all right, they constantly dominate the Panthers defense, right? So when they played the Niners, it's not like Kittle did a number on us, but across the middle, 7, 10, 15 yards, constantly wide open. Now, with that being said, the Panthers had some nice picks, right? So Mike Jackson had that one across the middle. J.C. Horn had that one where the tight end ran like a hook route, if I'm not mistaken. All right, saw he wasn't going to be at the route, worked his way to the middle, and then picked that off. Absolutely crazy. And the other one where it was hard to tell if the receiver ran it too long or Brock Purdy made a weak throw, but then J.C. Horn picked that one off. And that was J.C. Horn's first pick when he picked that one off. So even with the defense struggling, right, with Trevin Wallace and Christian Roseboom out, Panthers lost, 9-20. I still feel like the defense did good. Pass rush, it's like it was there, but it's just not, it's not there, right? So it's tough. I thought Princely played good, though, today. I thought Princely made a lot of plays, all right? Pass rush, yes and no, but across the board, Princely, he was everywhere, right? So the defense as a whole, if we're going to grade that real quick, I'd go, 7.5? I can't go 8. I'd probably go 7.5 today. Before we move on from talking about the defense, the Niners in the first half, the reason they succeeded so much was because kind of in their base offense, they can run it on you and they can pass it on you. And I think that's something Canales is going to have to work into, right? Where you see T-Mac go out, right? It's a run, right? You see him come back in, it's a pass. Now, it's obviously not that obvious every single play, right? But it's like there's so many substitutions. And I think the defense can kind of tell, right? And it's the same reason they played Chuba so much today, all right, as we kind of transition into the offense, right? I think Chuba got more reps today to catch the defense off guard. Now, as much success as Rico was having, two things can be true, right? Was Rico killing it as a running back? Yes. Were run defense not that good? Yes and no. But our team's starting to expect the run now? Yes, right? And so when they're starting to expect the run, Dave's got to figure that thing out, right? And I talked about it, I think, last week on the post game where dump that thing out, right? If they're going to stack the box, dump it out to Rico, dump it out to Chuba. And I thought Dave did a great job of that. Now, offense didn't convert, and I have a few notes on that. The first one's obviously going to be Bryce Young, and it's unfortunate that it happened, that interception in the end zone, because he did so good the 2 or 3 plays before that where he's rolling out. He can run, he can pass. He chooses quickly. All right, bang, pass, bang. I'm going to tuck the ball and run. And, of course, you get to the red zone. What's he do? He panics. He throws it up. I'm like, why didn't you just run it? If I'm not mistaken, we'll look at the film later this week. If I'm not mistaken, he had a lane to just run that ball in, or at least make it close. But instead, he tries to throw it up. I'm like, this is what we're talking about with Bryce Young in the first half right here. Is when he tries to take these chances, when the game's close, when they're tied, right? When it's only one possession. Unfortunately, Bryce Young consistently does this in the first half, right? And it's something I talked about 5 hours ago as well when people wanted to move on from Bryce Young. It's because of this right here, what he does in the first half, right? He tries to force things. Second half, you don't see that. Now, we'll get to the interception in a second, but in the first half, he's got to lock in, right? He's got to be more decisive. Now, I have a theory on this real quick, and I guess we have time right here. My theory is Bryce Young before, I don't remember what week it was, but I think the Panthers have been trying to work on keeping him in the pocket, not taking off completely left or right. I think sometimes he's trying to extend the play so much in the pocket and he wants to his guy that he's going to force it, right? Instead of just taking off and running it, it's something he's going to have to work on. And it's something he's going to have to get better at if the Panthers are going to win games consistently behind him, right? They're going to win games with Bryce Young. I have no doubt about that. But can you win them consistently, right? The interception he threw to T-Mac. Look, I went over it last week with T-Mac playing on outside the numbers, inside the numbers, and the slot as the Z. Teams are going to start eyeing him. Where are you going to go next, right? Teams are going to eye him. Look like a cover 0 look, cover 1 look, right? Falcons did the same thing. He did a great job against the Falcons going backside. I don't remember if that play was to Leggett or Coker, all right? But I was like, wait, why is Terrell giving, T-Mac inside release, right? It's because the safety was going to drop down. 49ers pretty much did exactly the same thing. If I'm not mistaken, they gave T-Mac inside release, basically dropped the safety down. Then look what happened, right? They picked off Bryce Young. Against the Falcons, they did the same thing, right? And Bryce Young went backside. It's something he's going to have to work on. It's something he's going to have to get used to. So I'm not too worried about it. All right, it's definitely unfortunate, but it shows that the Panthers offense has a ton of room to grow and a ton of potential. Something I've said since week 1, a ton of potential. The thing is now is who's going to be receiver number 2, right? Is it going to be Coker or is it going to be Leggett? I don't think Leggett really got a shot down the field, and that could be because the Niners defense and the pass rush they did generate. But I think Coker's got to be the number 2. I think use Leggett, as a deep threat when it's there. But Bryce Young has to go from 1 to 2. And I think too many times today he was trying to force it to T-Mac. Now, T-Mac on 4th and 2 early in the game, that drop, that hurts. It's like everything that went wrong for the Panthers, it went wrong. There was a 3rd and goal where Bryce Young dumps it off to Chuba. I don't remember which drive it was. It might have been the one where they got 3, if I'm not mistaken. Dumps off to Chuba. He's got a lead block with Sanders in front, and Sanders doesn't block anybody. At first, I was like, okay, well, Chuba, dang, dude. Then I rewatched it. I'm like, wait, he's got lead block Sanders right there, and Sanders just doesn't even touch him. And then I was like watching it, and I'm like, okay, he can't touch until Chuba has the ball in his hands, right? Because it's like illegal man down the field or block down the field, blah, 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 right? Nope. Chuba had the ball in his hand, Sanders solid, and still did not touch the defender at all. So Chuba had to try to make 2 guys miss. That's not going to happen, right? Everything that went wrong for the Panthers offensively, I think, went wrong. As far as what we've seen so far, you had Leggett going out of bounds, all right? You had Rico not having his best game. He had a couple good runs, right? But Bryce Young being inconsistent in the first half. T-Mac with the drop. Penalties, not really, right? But the things you really needed to clean up and fix, unfortunately, they look sloppy. They look sloppy offensively, right? Second half, I thought they played better, but first half, they had a chance to put up some points. Defense came away with some big turnovers, right? But the offense, they just couldn't convert. You missed that field goal, too. I think that one did get tipped, right? That long field goal that Fitz tried to kick. I mean, it was a tough game. I think I covered all my notes, no Cade Mays, all right? I'm sure that affected the run game a little bit. No Trevin, no Christian Roseboom. Defense gets 3 interceptions, all right? I thought the Niners did a great job kind of keeping the Panthers in that 3-4 base defense, all right? Because that means really it's Mike J and J.C. Horn out there, right, against the run and against the pass. So Niners did a good job at that, unfortunately. Then goes on to mention, the missed block for Chuba, T-Mac drop, Bryce hesitant. It's just unfortunate because, like I said before, something I've talked about all season long. Bryce, he makes his mistakes. Should I pass? Should I run? Should I pass? Should I run? Sometimes he gets some sacks. Sometimes he throws interceptions. And then today, like I said before, it was the interception. All right, play calling. It's going to be tough what Dave decides to do moving forward. I think one of the reasons Rico had so much success, one, I think run defenses weren't that good, if we're being honest, right? And I think you also made a big change in the offensive line on who you put at center, right? Unfortunately, he wasn't in. But the other thing is teams weren't expecting Rico to basically do what he did, to be as good as he was in this Panthers offense. And Dave is going to have to figure out a way to get back to that where teams aren't expecting the run. Because right now, teams are playing the Panthers saying, Bryce Young, you have to beat us, right? The problem, though, is that Dave is still trying to force the run. He's still trying to force it. We talked about Rico has to get more reps to get into a rhythm. Bryce Young has to get more passes in to get into a rhythm too, right? It's no different than someone going out and throwing catch, right, with their friend. When you're starting off, your arm's a little sore, you're warming up. It's the same thing, right? You got to get into a rhythm before quarter 2 or quarter 3, ideally, right? Otherwise, I think that's when the panic sets in. So Dave can also with the play calling. I don't think it was bad this game, but he's got to figure out a way to really manipulate the defense. So if they're going to play to stop the run, bang, we're going to go over the top. Something to definitely watch out for. All right, definitely more videos coming this week. Stay tuned. All right, I'm out. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Panthers Advice is out. Peace.